Welcome back. You tuned into Salam Media, and this is the Talking Point with me, your host Miriam Mia. And I have on screen here, you looking at, if you're watching it, connecting with us on YouTube or Facebook, Salam Media Facebook, you will see I have a picture of that is Hartebeespoort Dam. This was taken on the Key West Peakenwood side of the dam on Sunday, and as you can see, total coverage, you can only see slight bits of water on the far end, the mountain side of the dam. And this is the invasive aquatic weed we are speaking about today. Its name is called Salvinia minima, or the common Salvinia, and it is thought to now have covering 25% of the Hartebeespoort Dam. And what makes it even no a sight for sore eyes, and that is the litter. It's sort of a net for the litter. So you see all the litter that has washed into the dam and floating around is now caught. So this is actually a net for the litter. So it's riddled with litter as well as this aquatic weed. But I, as humanitarian journalist and a platform for humanitarian journalism, I always, my faith in humanity is always restored, even in our country, South Africa, with all the negatives going around. There's always hope because we have wonderful NPOs, advocacy groups, researchers, scientists, academics that always go the extra mile to improve our society, to improve our world, and they take it upon themselves to care and to solve our problems, be it in the water, be it on land, and that. And that's why it's a pleasure to acknowledge and welcome representing WISA, that is the Wildlife and Environmental Society of South Africa. I've got Ms. Joe Dreyer with me, and then on the line I have Professor Martin Hill, and he's the director at the Center for Biological Control, as well as from a government representative, Mr. Petrus Venter, the Deputy Regional Director of Water Resource Management, Department of Sanitation. I'm going to welcome Ms. Joe Dreyer first. Good afternoon, Joe, and welcome to Salam Media.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. And then good afternoon, Professor. Can you hear us, Professor Martin Hill? Professor, good afternoon. Okay, let me see. Let's go back to technical control. Let's see that. Good afternoon, Professor. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Miriam. I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, and welcome to Salam Media. And let me just see if I've got Mr. Petrus Venter on the line. That is Deputy Regional Director for Water Resource Management. Mr. Petrus, can you hear me?
I hear you quite well. I hope you can hear me as well.
Okay, good afternoon. So I'm going to start with Professor Martin Hill. So, Professor, can you just give us some information regarding this invasive aquatic weed that has been termed or known as Salvinia minima, or the common Salvinia? I know last year I spoke to your colleague, Professor Julie Kutsi, and we were their team did, or your team did, a fantastic job in terms of removing the water hyacinth. And then come sort of April, we see this little weed now growing, and many still name it hyacinth, and they said, oh, the hyacinths are growing, but this is now a secondary invasion. So if you can just give us a little history about how this plant came to be on the Hartebeespoort Dam.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. You're quite right. The plant that's covering the dam at the moment, or covering 25% of Hartebeespoort Dam, is the common Salvinia minima. It was first recorded on the dam as far back as 2012. But because of the water hyacinth there, the water hyacinth actually kept the Salvinia minima at bay. What's happened and why it's become so prominent is because of the good work that people like Julie Kutsia and others have done with the biological control of water hyacinth, is that we've now opened the dam up and Salvinia minima has taken its chance. Like the other aquatic weeds that we work on, like the giant Salvinia and also water hyacinth, the common Salvinia minima that you're seeing there at the moment, does very well in aquatic ecosystems, dams that are polluted with nitrogen and phosphates, as Hartebeespoort is, as we well know. So it's doing very well there at the moment. It's proliferating, as you say. It seems to catch all the litter and is a complete eyesore. But it's more than that, in that it also impacts what's going on underneath the water in the dam. And so we're looking at a sustainable control for that. And we have here at the Centre for Biological Control here at Dreyer University in Makanda, down in the Eastern Cape, a long way from where you guys are. We have a new insect in our quarantine. It's a little weevil called Hartebeespoort, and we are conducting tests on that little weevil at the moment to make sure that that weevil only eats Salvinia minima, the common Salvinia. And the tests so far are going really, really well. And we hope to have this insect cleared for release. This isn't our decision. It has to go through a committee, which includes the Department of Environmental Affairs and also Department of Agriculture. And we hope to have this insect cleared for release sometime in the spring, maybe September, October, if all goes according to plan. And certainly from what we've seen with the biological control of Salvinia minima in the United States, there's no reason to suggest that this insect won't do well here in South Africa. And we hope that we'll be able to bring Salvinia minima under some form of control. We're in the early stages of an invasion of Salvinia minima. It's only known from a couple of sites. It gets moved around between dams, maybe on leisure craft, people moving boats and so on. And so we really think that we could nip this in the bud, as it were, by getting this insect out as quickly as we can.
Thank you for that, Professor. Now to Joe, I want to bring you into the discussion. So WESA, in conjunction with Rotary Brits, have donated a specialized net to the community in an attempt to speed up the manual removal of Salvinia weed on the Hartebeespoort Dam. So while Professor and team is working on a biological solution to this, how successful has this net been in removing? And in terms of, I'm sure it's quite labor intensive as well. And then, you know what, I've monitored this for the 3 weeks, and it just seen, 3 weeks ago it looked maybe 15% and then 20, and then last week was, lo and behold, that whole section was completely covered. So are we able to remove it as fast as it's spreading?
Well, technically, yes, we can if we just keep doing it. The problem is that Salvinia, just like hyacinths, and with the professors online, they can correct me if I'm wrong. It takes 2 weeks for it to double in volume. So if we stop working for a day or two, we are allowing it to reproduce. So we need to try and keep ahead of its production or reproduction schedule in order to keep the numbers down. The nets are quite difficult to drag, but with the boats that they've been dragging it with, they have been able to bring a lot of it to the side, and the people that have been working on the sides have managed to get quite a bit of it out of the water. So we hope that in conjunction with the professors that are breeding these weevils, that we're not going to remove the weevils as well. So I would assume that they will eat it up quite quickly enough as it's been taken offshore, because it doesn't get moved from there. So it just gets left there, and hopefully we can make compost from it. So I'm hoping that the weevils will then also still consume it once they are off the water. So far the project has been very successful.
And good to hear. Let me bring Mr. Petrus Venter in here. So in terms of, from the government's point of view, from the Northwest province point of view, what are the efforts being made in terms of assisting to clear these invasive aquatic plants from Hartebeespoort Dam?
Well, the department has considered quite a few options. I can perhaps just jump quite far ago. In the 70s, the hyacinths have started growing on the Hartebeespoort Dam. There was at that time some biological control being introduced, but due to the offensiveness on the quick growth of the hyacinths, there was rulings in the late 70s that the department will go for chemical control, which obviously controlled the hyacinths very effectively for more than 20 plus years, but the whole ecosystem of the dam started collapsing. Different, fish species like the Chinese carp and the indigenous barbel have started dominating the whole system, and with that, it was a snowball effect. Toxic algae have taken over the dam. So the dam is highly eutrophic and it receives a lot of stormwater and purified wastewater coming from Johannesburg, where 2.5 million people are making a good living. So the dam is a dam to be managed on a continuous basis. So the department have acknowledged, in the turn of the century, that the chemical control is no option and should be only the last option. And then we must start supporting environmental affairs with the biocontrol. But only biocontrol do not give you results over 360 days of the year, because there is seasons coming and these growth seasons that this invasive plants are just totally overgrown the speed at which the insects can take over. And normally at the end of a season, like we have now seen 2 consecutive years, there was absolutely astonishing results with the hyacinths and the biocontrol on the hyacinths. The dam was covered more than 30%, and within a month or two, turning the end of the summer seasons, January, February, we're now sitting on that there's hardly 1 or 2% hyacinths left on the dam. So the biocontrol is definitely effective, but it cannot be the only way of dealing with the matter, because just to give you a feeling for this, people want to come and enjoy the dam in December. December is a peak growth season where the hyacinths peak and then the insects start taking over in January, and then plunges it in January, February, March, as we have seen, which means that we need a more integrated approach. The physical removal and mechanical removal had to be part of the solution. We hope never to use chemicals again on the Hartebeespoort Dam, because there's quite a lot of investment to get the ecosystem back. And if the ecosystem is efficiently healthy, it can actually cater for higher order plants to grow, and there is more competition. And for that concept, the department have actually introduced a whole logical integrated approach where we brought in artificial wetlands, remediate shoreline, and today it is even a legal requirement for people around the dam to ensure that their shoreline vegetation and the offset of floating wetlands must be part of this formula, which hasn't taken off in full. So that is try to give you a little bit of a brief, broader perspective towards dealing with the problem. But what you have noticed is, as a last statement, is always a living debris. And if the listeners can remember, the last season, December, January, we had extensive flooding in this country, almost all around. We all remember the flooding in Durban, but the Hartebeespoort Dam has actually dealt with significant amount of flooding, and that brought with it even more litter and debris. So the department has, for 2006 to 16 or 10 years, maintained a litter trap in the inlet of the dam where we could contain a significant amount of the waste entering the dam. And at the moment, there is quite a big commitment with the new management and the ministerial to bring back this and to work very closely with the people around the dam and upstream stakeholders to get a sustainable plan that can deal with it on a continuous basis.
So that's very encouraging indeed, Petrus, because that was my question to you. Has the Department of Sanitation, Environmental Affairs, also I'm probably thinking now Department of Tourism as well, are funds being ring-fenced and set aside for a holistic I don't know, a holistic plan going forward in terms of management and control? And also, has there been a stakeholder meeting? I mean, I'm looking at Rotary, Hartepesport, Visa, various resident association, professor and his team down in uh, uh, sorry, pardon me, professor and he at Rhodes. So his team down at Rhodes did phenomenal work there. So has there been some sort of stakeholder engagement? Because surely for this thing to be contained needs a multifaceted, holistic approach. And from government side, and from the province of Northwest, this is a question that many visitors, many residents, many activists are wanting to know. What is the plan forward and initiative as well? Because also I remember Professor Kutsi putting out an appeal on my program in December. Please, they're looking for funds because although a lot of research has gone into this, but it costs money and they weren't getting enough money from maybe government or that. So what is the plan going forward, and is there some sort of stakeholder engagement, Petrus?
Well, the department do first start with the budgeting. The department has dedicated the same amount of budget, and I'm not sure if I can mention the amount, but at the moment there is a 24 million rand budget per year, which was the budget for the developmental program, which we call the Hartebeespoort Dam, since 2006 to 20. From 2006 to 2016, there was a 10-year developmental research and development program where the department have developed and pilot implemented all of this concepts. There was a political decision that this must go into a different implementation way because the department did it through Rand Water as an implementing agent. And that the department need to establish a formal institution, which we might call a water user association, that can manage this type of activity through a dam management committee. And that is what the department does. Unfortunately, there was a lot of delay and political changeover, and we were definitely not talking to the stakeholders good enough. There is quite good in coordination between the different departments, which you mentioned, even Rhodes University. We got a dam coordinating committee, intergovernmental, in this transitional state that I have to mention, which is now much too long, 6 years for a transitional state to just get a formal implementing platform for what was developed. I think there is a bit to apologize, but we also need to see the context of there was a serious, more than 2 years, COVID crippling of the whole system that we obviously showed we have lost momentum. But it's now the time to pick up, and I would like to believe that the stakeholders is the model for implementation would include a lot of corporate and private support and sponsorship as well.
Thank you, Petrus. Encouraging indeed. Professor Martin, in terms of your engagements with the department, and that I'm sure this is encouraging news for you as well. I know your law center has worked closely, and Hartepesport has been part of your research as well for dams across South Africa as well. Are you now pleased that you've heard there's going to be a lot more consultation with government departments in the Northwest?
Absolutely, Miriam. I must just state that we would, as a research entity, like to thank the residents around Hartebeespoort who donated funding when we were in a funding hiatus. And it's very fortunate to have very recently, in fact, as of 1st of August, received some emergency funding from the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment Natural Resources Management Program. So that's shoring us up a little bit. But we would really like to thank the kind donations from people from around the dam that allowed us to continue this research into the development of a new insect for Salvinia minima when we were not receiving funding from the department. And Dr. Venter is absolutely right. We need an integrated approach. But at the end of the day, and I think we all know this, until we really have some big intervention in terms of addressing the levels of pollution in our inland water systems, we're going to continually fight these sorts of problems, whether it be water hyacinth, the new Salvinia minima, or algal blooms. We really need to take a long, hard look at how we are treating our aquatic ecosystems.
And then, Professor, as residents around there, when we all for now it's going to be the weevils instead of the bugs for the water hyacinth, but what impacts that's going to have for us when they hit landfall there? How invasive is those little weevils going to be? Just, are they going to be all over the household? Are going to affect us, and how harmful they are to humans?
Yeah. Okay. So absolutely, we, as you know, living around the dam for the last couple of years, you've had to share your house for a couple of weeks with thousands of little planters called megamelis from the water hyacinth. And this is really a product of the insect populations building up very, very high, and the plants being poor quality, and those poor little insects are going off looking for the healthy water hyacinth. We don't believe this will be the case with this new weevil that we've got for Salvinia minima. It's a really poor disperser. By that I mean it's quite lazy. It doesn't like to fly. The larvae bore inside the plant, and the adults feed on the top of the plant. And we've got an analogous situation in that we have a very similar weevil that we have used on giant Salvinia molesta, throughout this country since the late 1980s, which has been very successful in controlling giant Salvinia. And that weevil certainly hasn't swarmed the way that the little plant hopper on water hyacinth has. So, one never knows. You think you know everything about a natural system, and then that throws you a curveball. But our evidence to date suggests that this might be a slower process in terms of how the weevil will control the weed. It won't be quite as dramatic, maybe as the water hyacinth one. But we really believe that, based on, as I said, evidence from the United States, we should be effective at reducing the populations of Salvinia minima. Once again, not to say we'll ever eradicate it from the dam, and there will be times when manual removal is required. But we hope that the weevil feeding can help us out with that.
So, Professor, before I let you go, and this question is going to be to Joe afterwards, what can we residents, visitors to the Hartebeespoort Dam do our bit in terms of assisting in eradicating or controlling this aquatic weed?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. I think it's really, really important. And over the last probably 10 years, I think as scientists we've got a little bit better at engaging with citizens around what citizens can do and informing citizens. And I think that's really important. We will attempt to keep everybody informed through whatever social network platforms that we have been using in the past. What we would ask in return is information. If residents see something that might be changing, might be slightly different. For him, we'd really like to know that and come back to us through our social media network. But also, what we would hope in the long term is, as we have done with the water hyacinth agent, is we would be looking to set up satellite mass rearing stations around Hartebeespoort Dam to assist us in rearing this weevil. I know it sounds complicated. It's not. It's really quite simple. And assist us in rearing and introducing the weevil into the system. And I think what that does for us, it means that we've got more weevils on the dam, which is great. But also, I think what it does is residents then take responsibility for solving a problem which is really relevant to them.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, Professor, and much appreciated. And we will get you on, or maybe Professor Julie, in terms of updating us on how successful the introduction of the weevils are. And I mean, it's visible. You'll be able to see it as we did with the water hyacinths. Coming to you, Joe, in terms of how can we support your organization as visitors, as residents, as citizens who love our hearties? It's affectionate note as hearties. So what can we do to assist in terms of keeping our beloved hearties safe from all aquatic invasion and litter?
I sincerely hope that Professor Hill is still on the line. Before I get to what we can do as residents, the one thing that does actually need to be addressed more as a cause rather than solving the symptoms that we are working on with putting on the weevils and trying to remove the hyacinths and the Salvinia with the nets, is to actually stop the nitrates and the phosphates of being added to the dam, which is coming directly from raw sewage that does actually leak into the dam. And if we can stop that, the hyacinths as well as the Salvinia won't have a higher nitrate and a phosphate source in order to grow the way that it is growing. Hyacinths, and I speak under correction, does take out a lot of the phosphates and the nitrates in the water. So if we allow the hyacinths to just die again and leave it to fall back into the water, it just releases those nitrates and phosphates again. And the way I understand it, Salvinia actually produces nitrates as well. So we need to remove the plant as quickly as possible. It's great that the bugs do eat it. I'm not 100% sure if once the bugs have eaten the top layer of the plant and then the bottom layer dropping to the bottom of the water, if that then still releases nitrates and phosphates back into the water, which is where the blue algae, the green and the blue algae blooms come from. So it is actually very important to get it off of the dam rather than to just only let the top surface of it be eaten by the bugs. So we as residents, and apart from the municipality that we need to get to work with us to get rid of the raw sewage going in, we as residents can help. Even if you just take out a little bit, if you're living on the dam, remove as much of it as you are able to, maybe on a Saturday, or, with your gardener, just let them take some of the hyacinths out as much as you can.
Thank you for that. Professor, are you still on the line? I think Professor has left us, but
That's a pity.
But we are going to do a follow-up. Petrus, are you still there? Petrus, can you hear me?
I hear you well, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so can you perhaps answer that for us and for Joe as well, in terms of controlling the nitrogen? And so basically, when I spoke to Professor Julie Kusia last time, she says it's a perfect breeding ground also because of raw sewage that's being fed into the dam. This is what the hyacinths and the Salvinia, they thrive on. So in terms of prevention, what are the plans in terms of controlling the raw sewage coming into the dam? Is there any plan for that as well?
Yes, maybe I can just quickly try to respond. I do think it is necessary that we realize that a bigger part of this problem is a man-made problem. And I've stated it many times that busy symptoms of our modern lifestyle. So we all want the best of a flush toilet, but very few people realize that a flush toilet system is an open system, that there is wastewater treatment plants that need to perform, and we know that there are some not performing well, and there's big impacts coming from it. And there are raw sewage oozing out everywhere, and even if there's a rain event, to get all the wastewater to a treatment plant is absolutely impossible, because pump stations are geared to pump the normal flow. Then is stormwater ingress, which is education and also urbanized problem. With security, stormwater are contained. People chuck their stormwater into the wastewater system. The gullies around the house start taking the gutters that's from the house. It's small, high security complexes that now do not discharge stormwaters as it's supposed to be, and that stormwater finds its way into the sewer system, and the sewer systems just wash out. So there is a major awareness required on improving that part, because it's an open system, and it just receives what is being put in. And everybody staying in Johannesburg has access to the wastewater and the stormwater. So to resolve this problem is no joke. When we get 10 to 20%, 10 to 15 millimeters of rain in the system, there is about 50% through pump stations and manholes that just are overloaded. There is about 50% of untreated wastewater coming into the rivers. So the whole dam are punched during rain events with big loads of nutrients. So it's not, and that is a design that is used everywhere in the world. Some countries are just close to the sea, and they just dump their waste when it's raining into the sea. And maybe it's inconvenient too for people to realize it, but there is really not a solution on only managing the nutrients. The population upstream, even, and the department have run very well updated continuous monitoring systems, and we have actually shockingly determined that there's much more nutrients coming into the dam during rain events than we have ever estimated in the past. So we're sitting with big loads of nutrients coming in, and as I can say is that there's a lot of actions and directives and legal action in process and ongoing to ensure that this is being reduced and being improved on. But we need to realize the population is increasing, and the load, if everything works the most perfect way that it has been designed, the dam is still overloaded with nutrients. It's a small dam with a big metropolitan, in fact, actually, 3 metropolitan areas drain to the Hartepesport Dam, and we all know Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, and Tshwane, which is, just to give you an idea, there is at the moment about 720 million liters of purified sewage water that are discharged in the rivers coming to the Hartepesport Dam. That means half of water in the Hartepesport Dam under normal rainfall years is filled up with return water. That is a precious source, but it brings with it loaded nutrients, and we need to realize that we have a big education requirement, that people realize that they all can make a difference.
And I think here at Salam Media, that's exactly what we're doing here. This program will be on Salam Media, YouTube, Facebook, and please do share this with everybody who loves Hearties or every environmentalist at heart here. This is what we can do, and as Petrus Venter has said, part of it is a man-made problem here. So let's be environmentally aware, cognizant, and conscious as responsible citizens. It's our civic duty to protect our sensitive ecosystems. And I can see Joe in the background nodding her head there, and we thank you organizations such as yourself, and hopefully in a couple of months we can just have a follow-up program, and we can have some good work, good news with all the role players as well as stakeholders. And please, ordinary citizens, you are the most important stakeholder in this whole ecosystem in terms of how you protect our environment, our world. Joe, thank you so much for joining us, as well
It's a pleasure.
as Petrus for coming and availing yourself, as well as Professor Martin Hill. And like I say, in a couple of months' time, I'd like to do a follow-up on the Hartebeespoort Dam and the state of the dam as well. Thanks so much. This has been Talking Point on Salam Media. We're going to have a short break, and then we're going to dive into our educational session.
Thank you very much for your good work. Goodbye.
A pleasure. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's a new